Hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Swag Kage. Now this is an interesting one. Could Itachi beat the 5 Kage? After watching Seth the Programmer's video the other day on how Itachi is underrated, I kind of think he could. There are a few factors in my mind though that could really affect the fight. Say, if Itachi did get hit by either Tsunade or the Raikage, he's screwed. The boil release is an interesting one. How he would counter that. Seeing as it can melt the Susanoo, which we saw with Sasuke. The particle release, I'm assuming these are the 5 Kage that he's fighting. Yeah, it's like, but his Genjutsu, his speed, he's so fast. Like, in Seth's video, we saw he was going on about how Itachi can keep up speed with Naruto in his Edo Tensei form, who could keep up with the Raikage. So I don't know, it's going to be an interesting one. See what Swag has to say on this one. Shall we? Could Itachi beat 5 Kage?
Hey everybody, how's it going? So this is not at all what I expected my next video to be about. As a matter of fact, I was planning on talking about Shisui. But then, a little while ago, somebody tagged me in another conversation, and to keep a long story short, they ended up asking me if I thought Itachi could beat the 5 Kage. Like, all at once, by himself. And my first instinct was to say, absolutely not. The 5 Kage would rip him to pieces. Really? But then it sat with me for a few days, and I thought about it some more, and I was like, well, maybe I'm not giving Itachi as much credit as he deserves.
He is underrated.
Now, I want to make sure it's clear that when I said the 5 Kage would beat him, I was taking Itachi's sickness and near blindness into account. And in this video, I'm still going to do that, but I'm also going to be looking at a hypothetical prime Itachi that isn't sick and isn't on the verge of blindness, but is just as powerful as he was when he fought Sasuke. Now, the cool thing about this fight is that we can use Sasuke's fight with the 5 Kage as a point of reference. And now, Sasuke didn't fight all 5 of them at the same time, yes. And he fought Danzo in place of Tsunade. But still, all things considered, he did pretty well, and we can sort of use this to form an idea of how well Itachi might do if he were to fight against them as well. Now, before I talk about anything else, I want to say that I think the most important thing to take away from Sasuke's fight with the Kage is that they were strong enough to force him to use his Mangekyo Sharingan so much that he ended up going blind. Yeah, now, even if you don't think Itachi needs his Susanoo to beat the 5 Kage, I think it's a pretty big stretch to say that he could beat them without his Sharingan altogether. And there are a lot of things that imply that this guy was on the verge of blindness during his fight with Sasuke. First of all, of course, there's the fact that Sasuke went blind pretty much immediately after he got his Mangekyo Sharingan. And I know this is because he used it like an absurd amount throughout the time period that he had it, but he only used it in like 2 fights. His fight against B and his fight against the 5 Kage, the same people that Itachi would be fighting in this hypothetical. Also, Sasuke had just gotten his Mangekyo Sharingan, whereas this Itachi has had his for a while. And in his fight with Sasuke, we literally see from his perspective that his vision is really blurry at this point in his life. It's clear that Itachi has used his Mangekyo
he didn't go all out against Sasuke.
And in a fight against the 5 Kage, all at the same time, I don't think that they would last him for that much longer. Something I'd like to point out is that when Sasuke went blind, it was pretty shortly after his Susanoo had fully evolved. And of course, as we see in Itachi's fight with Sasuke, Itachi's Susanoo is fully evolved by the time this fight happens. So let's just say, for the sake of simplicity, since I'm going to talk about an Itachi that doesn't have this problem later in the video, that we can all agree that Itachi's Mangekyo isn't gonna last him for very long in this fight. So once his blindness fully sets in, he's not gonna have his Susanoo, and he's not gonna have either Amaterasu or Tsukuyomi. It's really hard for me to say that Itachi has any chance against the 5 Kage under these circumstances. They were almost able to seal Madara, and okay, I know it's like sort of a joke at this point that I bring up Madara in like every versus battle, even the ones he doesn't participate in. But can we all agree that he's at least a little bit relevant in this fight, since we're talking about the 5 Kage, and like the only time we ever see all of them fight as a group is against Madara? Anyway, so the 5 Kage were almost able to seal Madara. Right. The only reason they couldn't is because he whipped out his perfect Susanoo, and there was really nothing they could do about that. But even with all of his, like, Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan Rinnegan, Hashirama Cell wood-style, wood-clone nonsense, even with multiple full-body Susanoos, all of this other crazy stuff that they had to deal with, the 5 Kage were able to nearly beat Madara. You could maybe argue that he was holding back, but I don't think any amount of holding back is going to make up for the difference between Madara's arsenal of wood release, all the Rinnegan powers, Susanoo wood clones, all this crazy stuff, versus Itachi's, like, Genjutsu and Fireball Jutsu once his Sharingan has run out, right? So again, seeing as the 5 Kage beat a significantly more powerful enemy, at least without taking his perfect Susanoo into account, I don't think there's any way to argue that Itachi stands a chance here. Now moving forward, I'm gonna do Itachi a favor and assume he doesn't have to worry about any of these things. No near blindness, no sickness, none of that. He's completely healthy. And if we pit Itachi up against the 5 Kage like this, that does actually affect things substantially.
Of course it does.
Now, since I didn't really do this before, let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty of Itachi's capabilities. They matter a whole lot more in this round than they did in the last one, since this one isn't a one-sided stomp. And I want to start by talking about Itachi's speed. A lot of people have spread the idea that Itachi is significantly faster than the Raikage, and I was guilty of doing this in the past as well. This is because
we've got a disagreement here
with QB Chakra Mode Naruto when the two of them fought during the war. And of course, Naruto displayed pretty definitively that he was faster than the Raikage. Now, I think this exchange between Naruto and Itachi has been blown way out of proportion. First of all, the two of them are only seen trading blows for about one page, and there's nothing on this page to suggest that Naruto is trying his hardest. As a matter of fact, the opposite is actually implied. The two of them spend the entire page talking, and it's not just regular fight banter. Naruto is asking Itachi questions that he considers the answers to very important. Stuff about the Uchiha clan massacre, and by extension, stuff about Sasuke. This would have been Naruto's only opportunity to ask Itachi if Obito was telling the truth about why the Uchiha clan was wiped out. So I think it's totally fair to assume that Naruto's mind was a bit preoccupied on this page, and that affected his performance. Now, this would be one thing if Naruto had just run circles around the Raikage, but that's not what happened at all. It's not like he outsped him so extremely
it wasn't
that even
easy.
being able to touch Naruto is a sign that somebody is as fast or faster than A was. Naruto got hit a lot in this fight, and he even says verbatim that A can keep up with Biju mode. It took Naruto's complete focus just for him to avoid one of the Raikage's attacks, and him dodging this one single attack is treated as like a super triumphant moment. Plus, he's still at a negative record for attacks dodged versus attacks used hit by.
When you
and I'm
put
not
the ratio
saying that the
there,
Raikage is faster than Naruto or anything because of all of this, because that's obviously not what Kishimoto was trying to convey when he had Naruto dodge that attack at the end there. But what I am saying is that there's a lot more information present that implies the two of them are similar in speed than information that implies that Naruto is way faster than the Raikage is. Now, all that said, if you were able to prove that Itachi and Naruto were about the same speed, then you could reliably claim that he's faster than the Raikage by at least a little bit. And I've seen some people attempt to do this by claiming that since Itachi and Sasuke should have been about the same speed, and Sasuke and Naruto should have been about the same speed, then that would therefore mean Itachi is about as fast as Naruto is. The thing is, for this to be the case, we have to agree on something that just isn't true, and that's that Sasuke is as fast as KCM Naruto. For a while I wasn't sure why people thought this, but after enough digging through forums, I think I found the answer, and the most common reason is that Sasuke claimed he was going to match his chakra level to Naruto's when they made the Inferno-style Rasen Shuriken that they teleported into Obito. I guess from this, people extrapolated that Sasuke matched his power, his speed, all of his physical attributes to Naruto, and that's just wrong.
Surely
First
Sasuke
of all,
is
this
as
was
fast
just a
as
temporary
Naruto,
thing, and it required Sasuke to use his Sharingan to do it. And second of all, I thought it was pretty clear that he meant he was doing this strictly for the purpose of combining his jutsu with Naruto's. They just needed to make sure that the jutsu wasn't made up of too much of one half. It needed to be 50% Wind style and 50% Inferno style. A few chapters before this, when they do the whole Inferno style Rasen Shuriken thing for the first time, Tobirama explains that this is pretty much exactly what they meant, and that it's something that any two-man squad can do, but often struggles to do. There would be no reason to compliment them for just being at the same level of strength, so I think it's absolutely 100% true that they were just trying to make sure one half of the combination didn't outweigh the other half, not that they were trying to match their power levels. Now, if you're still not convinced, this hypothesis kind of debunks itself over the course of the next few chapters. If Naruto and Sasuke had equal chakra levels or whatever, Sasuke wouldn't be saying things like, Naruto's got this much chakra,
I suppose he wouldn't be questioning it,
Naruto now with perfect control over this much chakra.
No, but
and
surely
he's just he could for it, Hashirama himself compared
also
Naruto's
be
chakra
saying, "Oh wow, I'm surprised he's that
there's
strong."
no world in which Sasuke's chakra is
He's not
even
necessarily saying,
somewhat
"Wow, he's stronger than
close
me."
to being worth talking about in the same sentence as Hashirama's. He just doesn't have that much, especially if we're equating chakra levels to speed and power. If you want a direct speed comparison, though, Sasuke wasn't able to hit Madara at all after he came back to life and stole Hashirama's Sage Mode, but the first time Naruto attempts to attack him, he manages to blitz him. There's also another another, admittedly much easier method of addressing this. And that is by showing that B, who is slower, albeit not by much, than the Raikage, didn't have any trouble avoiding every attack Itachi threw at him. Like, Itachi even trapped B in a Genjutsu, and almost immediately lobbed a whole bunch of shuriken at him. And B not only broke out of the Genjutsu, but still had enough time to take out all 8 of his swords and deflect all of the
He's got the tailed beast to help him.
Now granted, the
snap out
speed
of
at
it.
which Itachi throws his shuriken isn't the same thing as the speed at which he can move his arms and legs, of course, but B also manages to grab Itachi with one of his tentacles and easily avoids an attack from behind. So you can take from this what you want. It doesn't necessarily imply that B is as fast as or faster than Itachi, but I think it's pretty good evidence to support the idea that Itachi hasn't completely eclipsed the Raikage in terms of speed. Now I keep seeing this thing, it's like this blog post on a power scaling wiki or something that tries to explain through the use of pixel measurements on the pages in the manga and calculus or whatever why Naruto is 73 times faster than the Raikage. And even if this wasn't just a hyper-literal misinterpretation of a scene composition choice made by the author of the manga, which is exactly what it is, but even if it wasn't that, that wouldn't change the fact that this is a massive outlier and completely contradicts everything else that happened up to this point in the fight. Personally, I feel like Itachi is, at best, just below the Raikage in terms of speed, and I'm more comfortable saying that he's probably substantially slower than the Raikage. Not like a tortoise in the hair difference or anything, but based on the fact that B didn't have any trouble reacting to him and he was blitzed multiple times by Sage Kabuto, I think it's totally reasonable to say that the Raikage is absolutely faster than him, even if it's only by a little bit. Now, I think this difference is going to be made even more noticeable thanks to teamwork between the Raikage and the Tsuchikage. We're shown during the Kage's fight with Madara that Onoki can drastically increase a person's speed by making them lighter, and
that's a bit of a factor
by a similar amount by making them heavier, which brings me to my next point, that being Itachi's durability. So depending on which of the Kage we're talking about, this may or may not be relevant at all. Gaara is pretty much able to completely bypass Itachi's physical durability because he can just seal him underneath a lot of sand, and as long as we're not factoring in the Yata mirror, Onoki can just dismantle Itachi's body at like a molecular level. Mei can also use acid that's been shown to be capable of melting through a person's Susanoo, so chances are it would probably do a lot of damage to Itachi's skin. So that means the only two characters I'm going to be comparing the attack power of to Itachi's durability are Tsunade and the Raikage, who are, unfortunately for Itachi, two of the hardest hitting characters in
if
the
they
whole
hit
team.
him,
and
he
I
is
feel
done.
like, especially if they get
I agree on
that.
that.
A couple good hits from them would probably be enough to kill him. Fortunately for Itachi, he has an indestructible shield, and the 5 Kage can't really do anything about the Yata mirror. On the other hand, the Yata mirror is unidirectional, like it doesn't all the way around.
No, it is just one directional.
So if the Kage are able to mount an assault from the sides,
different directions,
or from behind, they can at least attempt to break through his Susanoo, but that's easier said than done because the Susanoo's pretty big, so I'd imagine that circling around it wouldn't be easy. And they also have the Totsuka blade, which can one-shot any of them to worry about. Depending on where they fight, though, Gaara might be able to ignore the Yata mirror. As we saw when Madara was first reanimated,
Gaara
him
out of the Susanoo,
able to use the sand at his feet to straight up rip him out of his Susanoo. And I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be able to do the same thing to Itachi.
Yeah, it makes sense,
even if they fight somewhere without a bunch of sand, like a forest or something, Gaara should still be able to use sand tsunami or whatever to introduce a bunch of sand to the environment. If they fight somewhere indoors, like the 5 Kage summit venue or something, though, then this won't be an option. And under these circumstances, without a method of bypassing the Yata mirror, things will be significantly more difficult for the 5 Kage. But if Gaara is able to yoink Itachi out from his Susanoo, then I think the Raikage and Tsunade are going to be able to do a lot of damage to him. Like during his fight with Sasuke, he was noticeably injured by 2 shurikens stabbing him in the leg. And I know some people are going to be like, but Swag, Itachi was just holding back. But it doesn't make sense that he'd be able to, like, decrease the durability of his skin. Now, even if you do think Itachi made his skin softer so that the shuriken could penetrate him, that doesn't explain why he was worried when he realized that the shuriken were rigged. And I know some people are going to say, but it was just an act. He needed to convince Sasuke that he was trying his hardest. And, I mean, that would be a good argument if he had actually said that he was surprised out loud and not thought it in his head where Sasuke couldn't hear him. And even then, when he's reanimated, during his fight with Bee and Naruto, he still uses shuriken. Granted, they're flaming shuriken, but it's still obviously something that Itachi considers offers at least a minor threat to a person's safety, so I imagine that a full power punch or kick from the Raikage or Tsunade, especially if they're amped up by Inoki, I mean, Itachi's just not walking away from an attack like that completely unscathed. It's not gonna happen. I don't think he'd die in like one hit or whatever, but a handful of these attacks should be more than enough to get the job done, at least assuming Itachi isn't being protected by his Susanoo. I know some people are bound to disagree with me, but Tsunade's strength is no joke, and neither
really
is the
not. She
Raikage's.
is,
For example, B was really scared when he saw
else.
A power up to max against Naruto, and even implied that he thought the Raikage's next attack was gonna one-shot him. Now, I'm not saying that A could kill Casey and Naruto with one punch. B was probably wrong, and saying otherwise would be a little ridiculous. But for B to even consider this a possibility, the punch would have to be strong enough to at least injure Naruto. I think a really good way to drive my point home is by bringing up Sasuke's fight with the 5 Kage again, specifically his fight with the Raikage. Now, I know Itachi in his prime should be quite a bit stronger than Sasuke was at this point, but I don't think there's any reason to assume that there's some massive gulf between them as far as durability is concerned. Susanoo aside, what the two of them can withstand should be pretty similar, and Sasuke couldn't just stand there and take what the Raikage was dishing out. He had to constantly, throughout the whole fight, protect himself with his Susanoo ribcage. Furthermore, Sasuke didn't seem too confident.
It's a very enclosed area
he's
in, though.
Because right after he brings it out, like as in the first time the Raikage tries to attack him after the Liger Bomb, Sasuke coats the ribcage in Amaterasu using Kagetsuchi as an added layer of protection. And it's not like Sasuke was just being paranoid or something. This was definitely a good idea, because right after he does this, A tears through the ribcage without any trouble. Now, Tsunade's strength kind of speaks for itself. She hits even harder than the Raikage does, and some of her feats are pretty ridiculous. She punches this gigantic hole in Madara. I've seen some people who have gotten confused and think that this was just a wood clone, but at least as far as I'm aware, Madara substituted his real self out for a wood clone after Tsunade hit him. So this was the real Madara, and Tsunade left a massive hole in his chest with a single punch. So no matter how you want to interpret this, I think it's a pretty clear sign that one of Tsunade's attacks is going to do at least borderline lethal damage to Itachi. Yeah. I'm sure some people are going to be like, well, Swag, you see, Madara was weaker because he was Edo Tensei, so durability probably wasn't all that impressive, but like Edo Tensei nerfed or not, he's still Madara, and I really hope that there's nobody out there that thinks that even in his prime, Itachi is more of a physical tank than Madara. But still, if Tsunade, like, deleting Madara's torso with a single punch isn't impressive enough for you, she also cracked through his Susanoo's ribcage with one punch, and then shattered it completely with a follow-up kick. Now, to be fair, when Tsunade actually broke through the Susanoo, she did have help from Inoki and the Raikage. But you could argue that all they did was stop Madara.
At the same time, though, they're all still going to be part of the same fight that they were talking about hypothetically, aren't they?
Because it's not like the entire ribcage broke apart, only the side that Tsunade attacked did. I should also add that Madara's ribcage completely shrugged off a Super Oda Rasengan. And finally, Tsunade also topples one of Madara's full-body Susanoo wood clones with a single punch, which is pretty similar to the way that the same level of Madara's Susanoo reacted to having a Hirudora shot at it by 7th Gate Guy. And Tsunade did all of this without ever having her strength increased by Inoki. Now, the thing is, Itachi doesn't really have any durability feats that don't involve his Susanoo. As a matter of fact, it's shown pretty consistently that it's possible to damage him with baseline attacks, like Kabuto's Chakra Scalpel, or even, again, Sasuke's Rigged Shuriken. I've seen some pretty crazy takes about the amount of damage Itachi can withstand on forums and stuff, but the one that's definitely the most absurd is the idea that Itachi's durability is like 10 Tails level or something, because he should be relative to Naruto, who tanked the Jubi Cataclysm attack. So first of all, Itachi just isn't as strong or as durable as Naruto is. Nothing in the series implies that. Also, one panel after we see Naruto standing in the fallout of the explosion, we're shown that he was powered up by all of the Biju when he tanked it. Now, even setting all of that aside, there are two ways you can look at this. The first is that the Jubi Cataclysm wasn't even that devastating, because everyone who was there when it happened survived it thanks only to the little Biju Chakra Cloak Naruto created for all of them. Now, maybe you could argue that the only reason everybody survived despite their relatively lackluster protection is because they were much further from the center of the explosion than Naruto was. In that case, the second way you can look at this is, even if it was a super powerful attack and surviving it was a really big deal, Madara, who was closer to, but not quite in the center of the explosion, summoned his Susanoo to protect himself. And his Susanoo wasn't already active when the explosion happened or whatever. It's not like he just happened to be in it and didn't feel like leaving. You clearly see him, moments before this, summon his Susanoo in order to defend himself. So even if Itachi was comparable to KCM Naruto in terms of power and durability, which again he isn't, he still wouldn't be able to withstand something like this without his Susanoo. I feel like I spent too long addressing that, but I really don't want to get comments about stuff like this. Now let's move on to the aspect of Itachi's durability that's actually relevant, that being the durability of his Susanoo, setting aside the Yata mirror, of course. How tough it is to crack through Itachi's Susanoo depends on how we interpret a few things. Personally, I think he blocked Kirin with the Yata mirror, but I know not everybody believes this, and there's nothing in the series that definitively proves it happened one way or the other. Some people think it doesn't even matter because Itachi was holding back, near death, and plagued by sickness, and all three of these things could have made Itachi's Susanoo substantially weaker than it would have been if they weren't factors. All of these interpretations say drastically different things about the durability of this Susanoo, because even though it kept Kirin from killing him, he still sustained a few injuries from it, and his cloak was also vaporized. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to assume that its durability lies somewhere in between that of Sasuke's Susanoo during the 5 Kage Summit and Madara's Susanoo. Probably right in the middle of both of them. So in that case, cracking through his Susanoo wouldn't be easy for the 5 Kage, but I don't think it would be impossible either. Now, if all 5 of them were able to attack it at the same time, that would be one thing. But at least one of them is going to have to give Itachi something to block with the Yata mirror. This means that at best, 4 of them will be able to attack the Susanoo at the same time, and really the only 2 with the physical attack power necessary to break through it are Tsunade and the Raikage, and I feel like Itachi is going to go out of his way to use the Yata mirror to protect his Susanoo from the attacks of these 2 specifically more than anyone else. Now the good news for the Kage is they have 1, possibly even 2 get-out-of-jail-free cards versus Itachi's Susanoo. The first is something I've already talked about, and that is Gaara's sand. If they're anywhere other than indoors, Gaara's going to be able to yoink Itachi out of the Susanoo.
I love that word.
Now, if they're in a situation where this isn't possible, it is possible that Inoki might be able to just eat through the Susanoo with his particle style. Some of you might be thinking that I'm just giving Inoki a lot more credit than he deserves, and I get that, but this is actually based on something that happens in the manga. It's not as concrete as I'd like it to be, but it does have a pretty clear implication. So basically what happens is Tsunade rips off one of the Susanoo's limbs and tries to cut through Madara with it. Then Madara says, well, sorry, but you can't kill me with my own jutsu. Now it's important to recognize that he says this while clad in his Susanoo ribcage. Inoki then immediately butts in and says, my jutsu can kill you. Then he fires a particle-style beam at Madara, and everybody's like, oh man, you got him, you killed him, good job. And Madara doesn't even bother trying to block it with his Susanoo. He actually dispels his Susanoo and goes out of his way to absorb the Jinton Jutsu with the Rinnegan. Also, right after this, Madara treats Inoki like an idiot, not for trying to use Jinton against somebody who can protect themselves with a Susanoo, but instead for forgetting that the Rinnegan can absorb ninjutsu. Also, later in the fight, Inoki just, deletes all of Madara's Susanoo-clad wood clones with a single particle-style jutsu. And even though we don't see the real Madara inside of his Susanoo before this, he says right afterwards that his Susanoo kept him from absorbing the particle-style jutsu properly, which, of course, implies that the particle-style managed to get through his Susanoo, and that means it should be able to do the same thing.
Same for Itachi, right.
So unless I'm wrong, and Inoki's particle-style doesn't work this way, and unless they're in a situation where Gaara can't pull Itachi out of the Susanoo with his sand, the Kage have multiple ways around it, and that's without even mentioning the possibility that Mei might be able to melt it with her vapor style.
There we go.
So even if it's so durable that the 5 Kage aren't able to break it through physical means, they still have a handful of ways of pretty much completely bypassing it available to them. So since the 5 Kage's offensive prowess pretty clearly exceeds Itachi's defensive prowess, the only way for him to win this is if his own offense exceeds their defense by a greater amount. Now since we're talking about Itachi, something like this is actually fairly possible, since he has access to a lot of crazy one-shot abilities that the Kage have to watch out for. I think the most dangerous things he has up his sleeve are the Totsuka Blade and his various Genjutsu, especially because he can use both of them in combination with one another. Being able to immobilize someone with Genjutsu and then seal them with the Totsuka Blade is obviously pretty dangerous.
That's crazy.
But the thing is, Itachi can only do this to one person at a time. Even though it's not explicitly stated that all of Itachi's Genjutsu are single target, we have never ever seen him cast a Genjutsu on more than one person simultaneously. Now before anybody says it, yes, I know that before Itachi first used Tsukuyomi, Kakashi told Asuma and Kurenai to close their eyes. So first of all, Kakashi had no idea how Tsukuyomi worked at this point, so even if he did think that Itachi was going to catch all 3 of them with Tsukuyomi, that doesn't mean that Itachi could have actually done it. It could have just been him being cautious, and anyway, nothing about what he says actually implies he even thinks Itachi is going to use it on all 3 of them at once. Kakashi Kakashi told them to close their eyes
It is
because
funny
he
that my
didn't
thought
want
went
Itachi to try
instantly
and
to
use
this fight.
Tsukuyomi on either of them instead of him. He thought his own Sharingan would give him some amount of immunity to whatever Sharingan
he was
Genjutsu
wrong.
he thought Itachi was about to cast. And if he had been right about this, and whatever jutsu Itachi was going to use didn't work on him, then of course Itachi would have tried to use it on either Asuma or Kurenai instead. And if Kakashi had only told one of them to close their eyes for some reason, then Itachi would have just looked at whoever still had their eyes open. And anyway, the idea that Tsukuyomi or Uchiha Genjutsu in general are multi-target is later debunked during Kakashi's very next fight with Itachi, when Chiyo literally says that Uchiha aren't super dangerous when they're fighting multiple enemies at once because they can't trap all of their opponents in the same Genjutsu. Anyway, even if Tsukuyomi was multi-target, I'm sure the Kage would have enough sense to just not look into Itachi's eyes. And before anybody says it, yes, I know the Raikage was caught by Madara's Genjutsu, but to be fair, he was fighting 5 Susanoo wood clones at the same time, so he was under way more physical pressure than I imagine Itachi would be on him. Now, of course, I know Itachi knows more Genjutsu than just Tsukuyomi and his generic Sharingan Genjutsu, so Chiyo's statement about Uchiha versus large groups of people, that doesn't necessarily mean Itachi doesn't know any Genjutsu that work on more than one person at the same time. But like I said before, we've never seen him use a multi-target Genjutsu, so we don't know if he can. It's kind of implied that Itachi can do this sort of thing in Chapter 540, but the statement about it is pretty vague. So basically what happens is Shikaku and Inoichi are trying to figure out how the enemy has managed to infiltrate multiple allied shinobi forces camps spread throughout their territory. The reason this is so weird is because they have sensory ninja stationed at all of these camps, but still somehow the enemy is managing to sneak past them. They later find out that this is because white Zetsu are impersonating members of the allied shinobi forces, and they're even able to manipulate their chakra signatures, so that even sensory ninja mistake them for the people they're impersonating. Now, the statement about Itachi comes from before they realize this. Shikaku hypothesizes that a Genjutsu is being used by someone on the outside, and the first person that he can think of that might be capable of something like this is Itachi. However, Inoichi immediately says that something like this would be far beyond the capabilities of even Itachi, so this doesn't really tell us much anyway. Now, to be fair, based on the way they're talking about him, it is kind of fair to assume that maybe he's used multi-target Genjutsu in the past, but even if that is the case, we have no idea how one of these would work, even if Itachi could use it, because we've never seen him do it before. Now, trust me, I do get why people bring this up, and I don't want to downplay Itachi, but it's a bit outrageous to assume, based on this 3-sentence conversation between two people who probably don't even know him all that well, that he has a Genjutsu at his disposal that can 1. Immobilize multiple targets at once, and 2. Leave them immobilized for long enough that he can stab all of them with the Totsuka blade without being interrupted. Even if they had been right, and Itachi had been the person behind this Genjutsu, all it actually did was nullify the sensory powers of the allied shinobi forces sensory ninja. So, not only did they barely know Itachi, they also turned out to be wrong, and even if they had been right, the statement wouldn't be anywhere close to impressive enough to convince me that Itachi could just walk onto the battlefield, look at all 5 Kage, trap them in a Genjutsu, and instantly win the fight with the Totsuka blade. Now, all that said, I still recognize that Itachi's Genjutsu is formidable. I just don't think that you can use it on more than one person at the same time.
Yeah, I suppose we
probably
haven't seen
managed
it.
to trap one of the 5 Kage in a Genjutsu they can't escape from. But since both Inoki and Gaara are capable of bypassing his Susanoo, one of them might be able to get rid of the Susanoo before Itachi can even seal the other with the Totsuka blade. And as long as the Genjutsu that Itachi uses isn't Tsukuyomi, then I'm sure at least one of the other 5 Kage, particularly Tsunade, will be able to dispel it. Now, aside from his Genjutsu, the only thing Itachi has that poses a serious threat to the 5 Kage is the Totsuka blade. But since Inoki and Gaara can constantly just yeet him out of his Susanoo, he won't be able to reliably seal them with it. To be fair, the 5 Kage shouldn't know how the Totsuka blade works, but at the same time, I don't think any of them, aside from probably Tsunade, I guess, would go charging headfirst straight into this gigantic chakra blade, even if they don't know that it would be stupid enough to see a sword and go, wow. It still looks like getting hit by it would hurt really bad. Amaterasu might be a problem if it can actually hit any of the Kage, but the Raikage is fast enough to dodge it, as we've seen, and Gaara's sand can move fast enough to block it. Izanami doesn't even matter at all, because he can only use it a maximum of 2 times, and each time he uses it, he loses one of his Sharingan.
Yeah.
So even if he could get rid of 2 of the Kage with Izanami, which isn't even something I'm confident he could do, he'd still have 3 Kage left to fight with no Sharingan. So all in all, I'm pretty confident that the Kage have this in the bag. Now, I was planning on talking about Edo Itachi at the end here, but this video is already almost 30 minutes long, and I don't know if I want to make a whole separate video about it, but I definitely don't have enough time left in this video to go over it here. Edo Itachi aside, I'm pretty sure I've covered everything I needed to, so hope everybody enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching. Take care.
That was interesting. Some conflicting views there with that one in Seth's video. I don't know. There's some decent arguments there against Seth's scaling of Itachi's speed. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I want them to debate this now. I want them to do a video together talking about it and have a little bit of a versus talky thing on that, because I reckon Itachi would have a good go at the 5 Kage. I reckon he would, but it's how fast he is. He needs to compete with the right Kage. If he gets by Tsunade, he's screwed. That particle style thing is an interesting one, but again, doesn't understand completely how it works because it's not really explained how it affects the Susanoo against Madara. God, that one with the boil release, that's literally only get mentioned like twice, but again, don't know how effective it would be, because when it's Sasuke, it's just like the ribcage thing, it's not like the full thing. I don't know. I don't know whether I agree with everything in that video or not. I'll have to wait and see if there's a discussion out there afterwards between the two of them. But until then, thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos, and I'll see you guys. Next time.